There are people, maybe you're one of them, who have gone through life with a strange feeling they can't quite put into words, the sense of not really belonging in this world. This isn't just a passing mood or some psychological glitch. It's a quiet, persistent whisper that's followed them since childhood and doesn't fade away with success, love, or traditional spirituality. These are people who, even while living what looks like a normal, functioning life, feel deep down that something is seriously off. The way the world is set up, how their body reacts, the very logic behind suffering and death. This book is for those souls. It's not trying to convince anyone or offer scientific proof the usual way. It's not about fueling conspiracy theories or hiding behind vague mysticism. What this book presents is something more radical than just feeling out of place. It's not a problem with your nervous system or some buried trauma. It's a clue, a crack where a forbidden truth leaks through. A sign that your soul remembers something it can't explain but hasn't completely forgotten. Throughout history, religions have tried to tame this longing for something beyond, giving it names, rules, mediators, and punishments. Science has tried to explain it away, boiling everything down to brain chemistry or evolution. But none of these explanations can erase a deep suspicion that's carved into the core of human experience. That we were thrown into a simulation we didn't create, with bodies we didn't design, governed by rules we never agreed to. That suspicion isn't paranoia, it's memory. This book puts forward a thesis that might unsettle some and free others. Humanity, as we know it, is the result of an intervention. The human body wasn't made solely by natural evolution, but was altered, programmed, and limited by intelligences whose goal wasn't to expand consciousness, but to contain it. Our spiritual amnesia isn't natural. It's a built-in constraint. And all the ways we feel out of place, the body's fragility, our reliance on artificial systems, emotional confusion, repeated suffering, aren't signs of our flaws, but proof that we weren't meant to fit this world. At least, not without waking up. But this isn't a book about cosmic victimhood. It's not about blaming unseen forces or condemning the world as a trap. Quite the opposite. It's a guide for remembering, rebuilding, and awakening. A blend of the deepest Gnostic, Hermetic, and mystical teachings throughout history, combined with insights from modern science, energy biology, and consciousness physics. Its goal isn't to help you escape Earth, but to break the mental cage that stops you from realizing that, at your core, you are the original spark before any manipulation. Those who open this book with an open heart and mind will find more than just words. They'll find a mirror. We won't tell you who you are, where you came from, or where you're headed. But we'll give you the keys so you can remember it yourself. Not through belief or ideology, but through direct resonance with a truth coded into your consciousness before time. This book is for those who feel out of place, but refuse to give up. For those who know their pain has meaning, who feel their soul isn't from this world, and whose purpose isn't to just fit in but to transform. It's for anyone who's looked up at the sky full of questions, somehow knowing that what they were searching for was already searching for them. Chapter 1. The Body That Doesn't Belong. Anatomy of an Anomaly. Traditionally, the human body is seen as the peak of evolution, a result of millions of years of adaptation turning a primate into the planet's dominant species. But this story, widely accepted in science and culture, starts to fall apart under closer examination. Rather than a perfectly adapted machine, the human body feels contradictory, flawed, even awkward compared to other species. When you really look at how it functions, you don't see a peak, but a patchwork. Something that seems forced together, with parts that don't fully fit. Like something or someone jumped into the natural process, Take human skin, for example. Unlike most mammals, we don't have built-in protection like fur. Other animals face the elements naturally. We rely on clothes and gear just to handle small temperature changes. A slight drop in temperature can trigger intense reactions: shivering, fever, congestion, inflammation. The sun, the source of life, can burn us, give us cancer, and age us prematurely. It's strange that a creature supposedly born on African savannas reacts so badly to sun exposure. Even birds and reptiles, with their special feathers and scales, have a better relationship with the sun. How do we explain that the most advanced species needs layers, umbrellas, and sunscreen just to avoid skin damage from the very sun that gave life? Our feet show another structural mismatch. Without shoes, they can't handle direct contact with the ground for long without injury. Other animals walk, climb, and run barefoot without issue. Humans depend on technology just to get around. This isn't a matter of comfort. It's a real inability to adapt. The arch, heel, and toes all suggest our feet weren't built to walk barefoot on natural surfaces. What kind of evolution makes a creature that can't move through its environment without daily artificial support? Our need to cook food is another overlooked oddity. Most animals eat raw food without any problem. Humans, on the other hand, have to cook almost everything they eat to avoid getting sick, dealing with toxins, or just to digest it properly. Our teeth aren't built for tearing raw meat. Our digestive system can't handle many vegetables unless they're cooked first. And we're vulnerable to infections if we don't clean fruits and greens thoroughly. All this suggests that our digestive system isn't fully adapted to the diet available on Earth. In fact, comparative studies, like those by Harvard biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham, argue that cooking wasn't just a cultural breakthrough, but a physiological necessity. Without it, Homo sapiens wouldn't have made it. A species that depends on fire to digest its food is, by definition, not perfectly adapted. Also, our upright two-legged posture, far from being some perfect evolutionary achievement, has caused a long list of health issues that are unique to humans: herniated discs, scoliosis, chronic lower back pain, premature joint wear, and really difficult childbirth. No other animal faces a birth process as risky as ours. The mismatch between a newborn skull and the mother's pelvic canal is unmatched in the animal kingdom. How do we explain an evolutionary process that puts infant survival on such a razor's edge? Some paleontologists call this the obstetric dilemma, as if nature had to choose between bigger brains and safer births. But that sounds like a forced explanation. Everything points to the human skull evolving way too fast compared to the female pelvis, creating a disconnect that's hard to explain if this was all natural. At this point, it's worth mentioning some ideas considered outside the mainstream, but that fit these oddities better. Lloyd Pye, an independent researcher known for the star child skull, offered a bold but thoughtful hypothesis. Modern humans aren't just the product of earthly evolution, but the result of outside intervention. In his book, Everything You Know Is Wrong, Pye presents lots of evidence showing how Homo sapiens break all the known evolutionary rules. For example, our DNA has long stretches of junk DNA, sequences that don't code for anything but are way too complex to be random. According to Pye, these could be leftovers from non-earthly genetic tinkering. The idea of genetic intervention isn't new. It shows up symbolically in many ancient texts. The Sumerians talked about the Anunnaki, those who came down from heaven, who made humans by mixing clay with divine blood. The Book of Enoch tells of the Watchers, who came down and took human women, creating a new race. Gnostic stories about the Archons, beings who build bodies but lack spirit, support this idea that the human body might be a kind of prison, a biological shell designed to contain a consciousness not originally from this world. Seen this way, our body's fragility isn't a flaw, it's a built-in limit. Scientifically, the sudden jumps in evolution without clear fossil links challenge the idea of slow, gradual change. Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Homo sapiens look like separate species with no clear anatomical bridges. The sudden appearance of complex thinking, language, self-awareness, abstract planning, is tough to explain by random mutations alone. Why didn't any other species develop a similar brain? Why didn't Neanderthals, with brains just as big or bigger, create technological societies? The uniqueness of the human brain is so striking that some neuroscientists, like Terence Deacon, suggest language didn't evolve gradually but appeared as a sudden leap in complexity. If we think of the human body as a container for consciousness from elsewhere, many failures suddenly make sense. A body put together quickly, from local materials, limited in what it can do, and controlled by a delicate nervous system fits the idea of forced adaptation much better than smooth evolution. Take the immune system. It sometimes attacks the body itself, autoimmune diseases, or overreacts to harmless things like pollen or dust. This oversensitivity points to poor calibration. Maybe Earth's environment is actually a somewhat hostile place for the human body. This mismatch goes beyond the physical. Studies in bioresonance and biophotonics show our body's electromagnetic field is constantly clashing with Earth's natural fields. The link between the Schumann resonance, 7.83 Hz, and the human brain, although documented, feels more like a cultural adjustment than a biological one. The popularity of practices like meditation, grounding, and conscious breathing suggests our bodies have to work hard to stay in sync here. It's like the consciousness inside wasn't made for this planet's vibrations and has to keep realigning itself. Could a truly advanced intelligence create a being this fragile, dependent, and prone to collapse? Or are we looking at a simulation of life, an incomplete copy, a failed or deliberately limited experiment? This chapter isn't about giving answers, but about asking questions. The question you should keep in mind isn't if this could be true, but why it's never openly talked about. The body you live in might not really be yours, and just that idea, taken seriously, changes everything we think about existence. Chapter 2. The Exiled Soul. Consciousness inserted into dense matter. It's not really the human body, flawed as it may be, that shows how disconnected we are from this world. It's consciousness, that part of us that can see suffering, long for something infinite, remember things it never actually lived, and cry for what hasn't even happened yet. Sure, a brain structure can explain reactions, memories, even emotions, but it can't hold the vastness of a consciousness that goes beyond time, questions where it came from, and aches because it can't figure out its purpose. What kind of earthly setup could create a being that sacrifices itself for ideals, loves what can't be seen, and longs for the impossible? That's where the real mystery begins, not in the body, but in the flame burning inside. In the Corpus Hermeticum, a key text of Hermeticism, humanity is described as having two parts. Hermes Trismegistus says humans were given a piece of nous, the divine mind, trapped inside a lower form. According to this story, the original human wasn't physical, but pure intellect that fell in love with the material world and chose to join with flesh. That union caused imbalance. The bright soul got stuck in a heavy body, bound by time, space, and decay. This fall isn't punishment, but an existential accident, an eternal spark trapped in becoming. The Urantia book, a channeled work of unknown origin, supports this view with a detailed cosmology. It says human consciousness is a fragment of the thought adjuster, a pure part of God intentionally placed in evolving creatures. Earth isn't the natural home for that consciousness. It's just one of many experimental worlds where the divine mixes with the animal. According to this, humans aren't native. They're hosts to a higher intelligence that temporarily forgets its origin when it enters the body. The soul doesn't come from Earth. It descends. And the body isn't a temple, but a capsule for forced learning. This idea, in different words, also shows up in modern channelings from extra-dimensional beings like Ra, the Law of One, or Bashar. These sources agree. The human soul was made to forget where it came from. The earthly world is designed as a school, or a prison, depending on your level of awareness. And that feeling of not belonging isn't a disorder, but the first sign of waking up. That deep sadness with no clear cause, the emptiness that success, family, religion, or pleasure can't fill. These are signs of a soul remembering without realizing it's remembering. There's no sadness sharper than feeling ripped from your light for no reason. Mystics from all traditions have described this. St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul. Not an emotional low, but a rupture between the divine spark and its exile on earth. Sufis sang in poetry of the beloved's memory, a metaphor for lost origin. Vedantins talked about Atman as the forgotten reflection of Brahman, and life as Maya, or illusion. They all come back to the same idea. Consciousness didn't evolve here. It was brought in, placed inside matter to experience the illusion of separation. Since then, it's been searching, without knowing what it's searching for or where to find it. But it keeps searching. Science has tried to reduce consciousness to a byproduct of brain activity. While it's found brain patterns linked to experiences, it hasn't explained how consciousness itself arises. How can a bunch of electrical signals create a self? What chemical mix gives rise to nostalgia, a feeling involving time, idealism, desire, and loss all at once? David Chalmers calls this the hard problem of consciousness, and it's still unsolved. Some quantum physicists suggest consciousness is non-local, that it doesn't live in the brain but uses it as an interface. This may sound out there, but studies of near-death experiences, non-local memory, and quantum entanglement are giving this idea more weight. So the soul isn't a product of evolution, but something that existed before. The body isn't its origin, just its current limit. This explains the constant tug-of-war inside us. On one side, animal instincts, reactive, reproductive, adaptive. On the other, an immaterial drive toward the eternal, the beautiful, the true. No one teaches us to watch a sunset and feel it sacred. No one instructs us to be moved by a poem, to fight for justice, or to cry at a song. These feelings aren't just survival tools. They're echoes of a place where beauty is real. Love is a vibration, and meaning is structural. The exiled soul lives behind a veil. That veil looks like confusion about who we are, but also a deep desire to come home. The longing for home is universal, though it takes many forms. Religion, art, science, exploration. Every human effort to transcend, connect, and understand is a reflection of that hidden memory. The soul wants to return but doesn't know where to go. It knows it doesn't belong here, but doesn't know how to leave. This is the original tragedy. Knowing something's missing, but not what. Feeling incomplete, but not why. Wanting unity while stuck in brokenness. Yet this exile isn't random or meaningless. Esoteric traditions say consciousness came down by choice, that it wasn't thrown here but offered itself as a spark of light in a world without memory. The soul chose to forget in order to remember, chose to become dense to learn how to expand, chose limits in order to grow beyond them. From this point of view, exile isn't punishment, it's initiation. Earth isn't a prison, but a challenging labyrinth, and the body, with all its limits, is the crypt where light can be reborn, if it's sparked from within. The paradox is clear. The soul doesn't belong here, yet it's here by choice. It doesn't fit, yet it's here to learn how to fit without losing itself. It can't be fully itself trapped in matter, but it can shine through it from the inside. So, the goal isn't to escape the body, but to spiritualize it, not to destroy it, but to transform its purpose. The soul isn't here to just adapt, it's here to rework. Not here to forget, but to remember, fully awake. This outlook turns existential pain into a map. If the soul feels out of place, it's because it's right, and because it carries the coordinates of where it really belongs. The pain of disconnection isn't sickness, but inner strength resisting forgetfulness. The constant urge to return isn't running away. It's a spiritual compass. The exiled soul isn't lost. It's remembering, slowly, sometimes painfully, but remembering all the same. Understanding this is the first step toward making your whole life a conscious act of return. A return not about space, time, or even mind, but vibration. Back to the original frequency, before exile, before flesh, before time, only unity. That's where the work of redeeming matter begins, not to destroy this world, but to make it a reflection of the one we were never supposed to forget. Chapter 3. The Counterfeit Creator. Demiurges, Archons, and the Prison of the Genome. Any story about where we come from has to ask a fundamental question: who created us? Not just biologically or evolutionarily, but at the deepest level. Who designed the physical body we live in, with all its limits, contradictions, and mismatch with nature? Traditional religion says a good, all-knowing God made everything. But Gnostic and esoteric traditions, silenced for centuries and often persecuted, offer a very different and, in many ways, more logical answer to humanity's strange existence. We weren't created by the true God. We were made by a lesser creator, a demiurge, who thought he was God. This being shaped a flawed world and imperfect bodies, helped by entities called archons. The Apocryphon of John, a key Gnostic text from Nag Hammadi, tells this story. It explains how Sophia, an emanation of the fullness, Pleroma, made an imperfect idea without permission. This idea became Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, an arrogant being who, not knowing its true source, declared, "I am God, and there is none other besides me." This creature, unaware of the true source, created the material world as a twisted copy of the spiritual realm. With help from archons, its own emanations, it built human bodies to trap the divine spark it didn't understand. The human soul, placed in flesh made by beings cut off from the light, got caught in a cosmic cycle of forgetfulness and illusion. This demiurge isn't the Father God Jesus spoke of privately to his closest followers, as revealed in the Gospel of Judas, but a false copy, a faker who rules with authority but no wisdom, with power but no love. That forbidden gospel shows Jesus didn't see Yahweh as his Father, but as a lesser power who stole the creator role. To Judas, the only one who truly got it, he revealed that humanity was created by mistake, and only those who see the material world as illusion can be free. So there's a sharp divide. One God creates bodies, the other breathes spirit. Mixing them up means living in chains. El Misterio by Belikin Avilca, a secret Argentine occult text, takes this further. It describes humanity's spiritual capture through genetic tampering by beings linked to Yahweh, Yaldabaoth, aiming to trap the Hyperborean spirit in human form. According to this, genetic manipulation was designed to stop the soul from remembering its origin. The human body, with altered DNA, acts like a filter system. The spirit's original vibration is buried under layers of biological programming that answer not to the whole, but to the demiurge. Here, DNA isn't just instructions for cells, it's a tool for metaphysical captivity. This isn't just mythology. Modern genetics has uncovered troubling facts about the human genome. For a long time, 98% of DNA was called junk because it didn't code for proteins. But new research shows these non-coding parts play major roles in controlling gene expression. What if those non-coding sections are actually locked programming blocks, designed to keep spiritual memory sealed off? Researchers like Rupert Sheldrake have suggested the existence of morphic fields, non-physical patterns that shape how genes express beyond the DNA code itself. From this view, the soul is an informational field trying to break through matter to remember itself, but facing energetic barriers built into our genes. Transgenerational epigenetics, the study of how experiences can be passed down without changing DNA sequences, shows that cellular memory goes beyond just genes. Traumas, fears, emotional patterns, even sensory preferences can be inherited from one generation to the next without direct genetic changes. This suggests the human body holds information in ways more complex than we thought, and maybe there are epigenetic blocks designed to keep us asleep. A system programmed to repeat fear, submission, and self-destruction. As if the human genome wasn't just altered to survive, but to stay unconscious. Although the science is still developing, there's enough evidence to ask, is human DNA a manipulated document? Could some codes have been artificially added to block our higher spiritual abilities? Biblical stories about the sons of God, taking human wives and fathering giants, the Nephilim, or the Book of Enoch's tales of fallen angels teaching forbidden knowledge, can be seen as accounts of genetic mixing. One thing is constant across these stories. Higher knowledge was blocked, races were corrupted, and a control system was put in place, based on bodies made to serve, not to transcend. Hermetic tradition, though less literal, also points to this split between the true creator and the blind architect. In Poimandres, the first treatise of the Corpus Hermeticum, the celestial human, seeing itself in matter, descends and gets trapped. That matter wasn't created by nous, but by a chaotic shadow substance. The architect of this lower world has no knowledge of the eternal, only the ability to copy it in temporary forms. This architect is the demiurge, and his creation is the human body. A distorted reflection of the glorious body the soul longs to reclaim. If we accept that the human body was designed by an inferior intelligence, then life on Earth as we know it is a simulation, not genuine creation. It's a testing ground, but also a place of deception. When consciousness incarnates, it submits to a preset operating system that limits what it can do, not just biologically, but perceptually. Our nervous system is set up to pick up only a tiny slice of the electromagnetic, auditory, and visual worlds. Reality's full vibrational field is much broader, but the body is designed not to notice it. This is the demiurge's plan, to create a world that seems complete, but hides what really matters. The genome's prison isn't a mistake, it's a strategy. Every cell in our body carries programming that ties it to fear, pain, and ignorance. Yet at the same time, each cell holds a memory of another vibration. The soul wasn't wiped out. It was silenced, but not destroyed. The goal of this book is to wake up that hidden vibration, to activate the dormant code, and to reopen the frequency of remembrance, not through blind faith or empty rituals, but through real understanding. Only those who understand can break the programming. Only those who see the fake creator for what it is can reach for the light that came before. And that light isn't somewhere outside, lost or distant. It's inside, locked in every molecule, waiting for the soul, despite the genetic cage, to remember it never fully left its original home. The code may have been changed, but the key wasn't destroyed, just hidden. Now is the time to find it. Chapter 4. The Seed Races. Earth split into 1,000 fragments. The official story of humanity is crafted to look like a closed, Earth-only process, free from outside influence. But if you move beyond biology and look at deep spiritual traditions, marginalized texts, and stories preserved by non-mainstream cultures, a very different picture emerges. Humans aren't a pure race or a random evolutionary accident. We're the product of interstellar seeding. Multiple star civilizations intervened over time, each with different goals, creating a complex genetic, spiritual, and energetic web that explains both the contradictions inside us and our hidden potential. The oldest records pointing to outside intervention are the Sumerian texts, especially the cuneiform tablets of the Nippur corpus, where the Anana or Anunnaki first appear. In the Epic of Atrahasis, there's a clear description of human creation. Mix the clay with the blood. Let God and man be bound in clay. Atrahasis, Tablet 1, lines 256-260. This act was meant to solve a rebellion among lesser gods, the Igigi, who refused to keep working for the greater gods. So the Anunnaki created humans as substitute laborers, using Earth's clay and the blood of a sacrificed deity named Geshtu-E. This story suggests not only genetic manipulation but a functional, rather than spiritual creation. Humans were made to serve, not to rise. The idea of forced hybridization is expanded in modern channeled texts like The Prism of Lyra by Lissa Royal and Keith Priest. They describe humanity as the result of a long line of genetic crosses between star races, each with different purposes. In their words, Homo sapiens was the result of a long chain of genetic experimentation. In its lineage flows the blood of Lyra, Vega, Sirius, Orion, the Pleiades, and lesser-known races from the Arcturian system. Royal and Priest, The Prism of Lyra. Chapter 3. This mixed lineage wasn't uniform. Some races aimed for the soul's spiritual growth, while others wanted control, domination, and energy extraction. That genetic mix explains why humans can show both deep compassion and irrational violence. These aren't just psychological contradictions, they're inherited codes from races with very different evolutionary goals. The Terra Papers by Robert Morning Sky, a descendant or guardian of Pleiadian initiatic accounts passed down orally through his lineage, offers an even more detailed story. According to the document, Earth was the battleground for a long war between stellar empires. The Sea, or Syrian, Enki, scientific beings from the Syrian line, wanted to free humanity, while the Anil, Anu, Enlil, military leaders aimed to keep control over Earth's population. Morning Sky writes, the human race was manufactured by the lords of the sky, a species designed to serve, modified to forget, and scattered across the earth like cattle. Robert Morning Sky, The Terra Papers. Section 1. The Origin of Humans. Though ignored by mainstream science, these texts surprisingly match up with fragments preserved by cultures that had no contact with each other. In the Dogon myths of Mali, for example, there's a story of beings from Sirius B, called the Nomo, who taught agriculture, astronomy, and spiritual rites. The Dogon priest Ogotemeli, recorded by Marcel Griaul in 1931, said the Nomo came down in a boat of fire, taught men, and then returned to the sky. This invisible star, unknown to the naked eye until modern telescopes, was already known to them as a white dwarf companion to Sirius A, something considered impossible for their time. Could these traditions be describing the same events as modern texts, just in different symbolic languages? It's possible modern humans are the product of multi-origin programming, with both potentials for awakening and systems for control built in. From this viewpoint, Earth's test isn't just an evolutionary step, but a multi-dimensional lab. Each person carries complex coding that responds to many impulses. Moral choices, soul movements, drives toward creation or destruction aren't just personal lessons. They're echoes of stellar memories competing for activation. Free will, so celebrated in spiritual teachings, only makes sense within this genetic spiritual struggle. To choose is to activate a dormant lineage, a unique frequency among the many living in the quantum field of the self. In technical terms, this idea aligns with Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphogenetic fields and research on harmonic resonance in DNA. Quantum biology is starting to see DNA not just as a physical blueprint, but as an antenna that can receive and send frequencies. This suggests that certain mental, emotional, or environmental states could wake up genetic segments dormant for generations. What we call spirituality may actually be vibrational genetic engineering. Rituals, meditation, and inner practices might literally switch on the stellar parts of our human code. So Earth isn't just humanity's home. It's the meeting point of many races, experiments, and crossed agendas. It's the stage for a quiet battle between memories fighting to control the soul's inner story. The real test isn't survival or adaptation, but remembering and choosing which lineage you'll serve. The one programmed to forget, or the one that seeded liberation codes. That choice isn't made by words or beliefs. It's made at the deepest level of your personal energy field, where each thought and act of courage or fear opens one channel or the other. To be human, in this sense, is to be the crossroads of thousands of years of stellar intervention. You're the battleground and the exit door all at once. When you recognize your fragmentation and start to bring it together, you stop being a programmed object and become the start of a new species. Humanity isn't the end of evolution, it's the beginning of a cosmic integration. And this integration, blocked for millennia by genetic programming, vibrational engineering, and historical control, can only be sparked from within. Not by blind faith, but by clear knowledge. Because what's divided must first be understood before it can be healed. In that understanding, we discover not where we came from, but what we can still become. Chapter 5. Earth as Experimental Cage, Spiritual Quarantine and Fragmented Memory. If the human soul doesn't remember where it came from, it's not because it lacks intelligence or spiritual desire. It didn't forget by accident. It was made to forget. The veil-blocking memory of origin isn't a weakness, but an engineered barrier, maintained by forces that turned Earth into a system of spiritual quarantine. This quarantine isn't just metaphorical. It's an energetic, mental, and vibrational setup that traps incarnate consciousness, blocking access to cosmic memory and limiting its power to manifest. The Book of Enoch, Ethiopic version, tells how a group called the Watchers came down to Earth and disrupted the original order. Their intervention brought forbidden knowledge that corrupted pre-flood civilization and caused genetic and spiritual contamination, sealing off access to higher realms. The text says, "And they taught them enchantments and root cuttings, and made them acquainted with plants. And the women conceived and brought forth giants. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them." Book of Enoch, Anonymous. Beyond symbolism, this story points to a deep break in spiritual consciousness flowing into humanity. The Watchers inserted a code foreign to the divine order. Since then, humanity has been caught in cycles of repetition, forgetting, and suffering. The presence of these beings caused a shift in vibration that cut earthly consciousness off from the universal matrix. This disconnection is what we now call the veil of forgetting. The same idea is explained from a more technical, vibrational perspective in the Law of One, a series of teachings channeled by an entity named Ra through Carla Ruckert. Ra says, Earth is a third-density planet, where a veil has been placed between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind to allow free will to develop. Without this veil, learning would be impossible because the truth would be obvious. Here we learn that forgetting isn't just imposed. It's part of an experiment designed so the soul, faced with isolation, chooses to remember. But that same veil has been manipulated by other intelligences who, by interfering with the original plan, turned what was meant to be an evolutionary lab into an energetic prison. The difference is subtle but critical. It's not that Earth itself is poorly made, but that it's been encapsulated. It's not the planet that blocks remembering. It's the mental layer projected over it, maintained by thought systems, emotional patterns, doctrines, traumas, and subtle technologies that feed the illusion of separation. Though invisible, this veil has clear structures. One is the collective belief system upheld by formal education, mass culture, official history, and reductionist science. From early on, people are trained to distrust intuition, to see their inner life as irrelevant, and to look for truth outside themselves in external authorities. They're taught to look outward, not inward, to memorize what's taught, not recall what's innate. This programming densifies, fragments, and throws off the soul's vibratory field. The soul doesn't forget by nature. It's taught not to remember. Another part of the veil is conditioned emotionality. Fear, guilt, shame, and compulsive desire are low frequencies that block consciousness from expanding. These emotions aren't just biological reactions. They're frequencies induced by cultural, religious, and political stories designed to keep people in a constant state of reactive survival. While consciousness is busy reacting, it can't remember. Fear, as both Eastern wisdom and modern neuroscience explain, limits access to the frontal lobe, the center for vision, creativity, and spirituality. The limbic system takes over, and the soul gets stuck in a defensive loop, unable to grow. Energetically, this quarantine is supported by artificial fields created by the collective mind. Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic fields describes how every species and society generates a shared memory that influences its members. In humanity's case, this memory is clogged with trauma, war, lies, and manipulation. Earth's vibrational network is saturated with information that keeps us disconnected. That's why remembering our origin isn't just introspection. It's a break from a global psychic web that acts like a gravitational pull on consciousness. The astral plane, the space between matter and spirit, is another part of this invisible cage. There, many entities feed on human suffering, called psychic parasites, egregores, or archons in Gnostic tradition. These beings don't need physical bodies to influence us. They operate through emotions, thoughts, and dreams, feeding on imbalance and strengthening the illusion of separation. From this view, sleep isn't always rest. It can be a battleground for interference. Many spiritual efforts fail not for lack of faith, but because they don't account for the vibrational terrain they're trying to work within. And yet, this cage isn't unbreakable. Every soul that incarnates carries an uncontaminated spark, a particle that can't be altered or distorted. It's a point of spiritual singularity still in tune with the source. Though silenced, That spark acts like a resonator, the key to awakening. It doesn't respond to outside triggers, but to inner vibrations that awaken when the soul aligns with truth. That alignment isn't reached through intellectual knowledge alone, but by fully harmonizing thought, feeling, and action. When a person starts thinking from the heart, feeling from vision, and acting from truth, the veil begins to lift. The first sign the veil is breaking is spontaneous remembrance. A vision, a certainty, a vivid dream, or a sudden intuition. The soul starts to remember not in words but in frequencies. Synchronicities happen, patterns emerge, and unknown things suddenly feel familiar. This isn't madness or suggestion. It's the frequency of origin leaking through the wall. As consciousness stabilizes in this new vibration, the entire control system loses power. Earth, then, is more than just a planet. It's a living experiment testing whether consciousness can remember itself under the toughest conditions of forgetfulness. Every soul here is a seed of another reality, and its mission isn't to adapt to this prison, but to find the way out from within. Because the door isn't locked from the outside, it's locked from the mind. Only the one who opens it from inside can leave, not by running away, but by transforming. Not by destroying, but by illuminating. Once remembrance happens, sleeping again isn't possible. In that moment, the cage stops being a prison. It becomes the stage for awakening. Chapter 6. Technology of Pain. The body as a suffering interface. The human body, far from being a balanced system designed to expand consciousness, actually seems built as an interface for processing pain. It doesn't just suffer from disease, injury, or wear with surprising ease. It also reacts to its surroundings with a psychic hypersensitivity that turns it into a constant receiver of suffering. The human nervous system isn't so much made to express the soul as it is to reduce its vibration. This isn't a random flaw in the body. It's a device for spiritual suppression working with precise calculation. From a traditional physiological perspective, pain serves a clear purpose, warning the body of danger and triggering protective reactions. But in humans, pain has gone far beyond its biological role. It has become a constant state, physical, emotional, existential pain. Pain that builds up, gets passed on, even anticipated. Pain as identity. Pain as normal. This ongoing suffering isn't because we're just extra sensitive. It's because our body's design allows and reproduces it. The human body doesn't only take in pain, it stores it, recycles it, and makes it habitual. Modern neurobiology confirms this. Studies of the limbic system, especially the amygdala and hippocampus, show traumatic experiences get encoded more strongly and last longer than positive ones. The brain isn't wired to remember joy, but danger. This isn't a mistake. It shapes how we see the world, favoring survival over growth, repetition over openness. Each painful memory strengthens neural pathways that fire even without a current threat. Neuroplasticity, the brain's amazing ability to learn, is also the trap that locks in suffering. The pineal gland, recognized in many esoteric traditions as the seat of the soul, is now atrophied in most people. Its calcification, linked to fluoride, heavy metals, and artificial radiation, blocks it from acting as a channel for subtle realities. In the Corpus Hermeticum, Hermes says, "The vision of the heart is purer than that of the eye," referring to the inner center of transcendent sight. Today, that organ of inner vision has been chemically shut down, not by accident, but by design. The pineal connects the soul to other dimensions. Shutting it down cuts that link. The vagus nerve, a key part of the parasympathetic nervous system, is another target. It controls digestion, heart rate, stress, and overall balance. But it's also a direct connection between brain and heart, mind and emotion. Research shows proper vagal stimulation brings deep calm, spiritual openness, and healing. Yet modern life, constant stimuli, chronic anxiety, emotional instability, keeps the vagus nerve in a state of suppression. It's as if the body was designed to run on alert, never reaching its center of rest, reflection, and transcendence. From an energetic angle, the chakras, energy centers described in Hinduism and found in Sufism, Taoism, and Christian mysticism, act like vortices that can be balanced or blocked. Ideally, the body would be a clear channel for energy moving up and down. Instead, emotional, cultural, sexual, and mental blockages get in the way. The root chakra, survival center, is overactive, the heart closed off by wounds, and the third eye clouded by mental conditioning. The chakra system ends up a network of stuck points holding an internal vibration of conflict. The result is a distorted energy structure that can't support expanded consciousness. So, the body isn't a sealed temple freely inhabited by the soul, as some Eastern teachings say. It's more like a cell loaded with hyperactive pain sensors and energy blocks. This flip in the original design has big consequences. Classical Taoism says, the body is the bridge between heaven and earth. But that bridge has been sabotaged, its resonance twisted so consciousness can't cross. It just spins trapped in pain. The soul hasn't lost its power, but its vehicle has been undermined. This manipulation shows up in biofeedback studies too. When looking at the link between emotional states and physical responses, heart rate, skin temperature, sweat, the body reacts more to negative than positive triggers. Healing from trauma takes much longer than the trauma itself, suggesting the body is designed to keep suffering alive long after the cause is gone. What happens when pain lasts for years? The nervous system rewires itself. The body becomes a field of chronic resonance that amplifies every disturbance. This isn't just metaphor, it's vibrational physics. Every body emits a frequency. A body used to pain emits a distorted one that attracts matching experiences. It's a feedback loop keeping the soul trapped in an invisible, but very real, prison. The law of attraction, often misunderstood as just positive thinking, can't work if the body vibrates with trauma. But this isn't a sentence, it's a warning. What was broken can be fixed. Neuroplasticity allows the nervous system to be rewired. The pineal gland can be decalcified. The vagus nerve can be reactivated. Chakras can be cleared. But not through empty affirmations or random rituals. Only through deep, consistent, conscious work involving every cell, every emotion, every daily choice. The soul can't shine through a body that can't hold its light. Spirit can't descend if the system can't carry its energy. That's why spiritual awakening requires biological healing. This is the core teaching hidden in every esoteric tradition. Wanting to remember isn't enough. The body must be reset. Flesh isn't the enemy of the soul, but it's been turned into an obstacle. Not because the body is bad, but because it was tampered with. Understanding this is the first step to freedom, not by rejecting the body, but by restoring its vibration. Pain isn't the teacher. It's the alarm of a rigged design. And for the first time in thousands of years, the human soul has the knowledge to shut down that system. When the body stops feeding suffering, consciousness rises unhindered. Then the prison becomes a temple, and the flesh an instrument of return. Chapter 7. Language as Trap. Broken symbols and falsified memory. If the soul doesn't remember, if the body hurts, If reality repeats like a programmed prison, it's because language has been tampered with, not just as a neutral tool, but as a device for shaping perception. Humans don't simply think with words. They experience reality through language implanted in their minds as a structural program. Every verb, noun, and grammar rule acts like a line of vibrational code, guiding how the soul interprets the world, itself, and the divine. But that code has been fractured. Language, originally a technology of creation, was turned into a semantic cage. A cage that teaches the soul to obey, to fear, to divide, and to forget. Genesis symbolically points to one key event of this break, the fall of Babel. It says, "And Yahweh said, Behold, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." Genesis 11:6-7. Here, humanity, unified in one language, tried to reach heaven to recover its origin. That unity was stopped by language confusion. The key isn't linguistic diversity itself, but that breaking language was used to block the expansion of collective consciousness. It wasn't punishment, it was sabotage. What was once a clear channel between soul and creation became a swarm of broken symbols. The Talmud highlights the power of letters as bearers of creation. In Berakot it says, "The letters were created before the world, and with them everything that exists was formed." Babylonian Talmud. This idea that letters aren't just signs but vibrational forces also appears in Kabbalah, where each Hebrew letter is an archetypal energy. The Sefer Yetzirah, one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts, states that through 32 paths of wisdom, the 10 Sephirot and 22 fundamental letters, the universe was created. Language wasn't designed just to describe the world, but to form it through consciousness. But when unity was lost, broken into semantic systems no longer resonating with essence, language began to name without creating, classify without connecting, and divide without understanding. Words stopped being bridges and became walls. Modern language carries fear in its very structure. Most contemporary languages, especially those rooted in Latin and Anglo-Saxon, are full of verb forms that assert separation, lack, and linear time. We speak in past and future tense as if the present is an exception. We talk about humans as subjects outside the world, who own things, fight to survive, and deserve reward or punishment. The I is separated from the other, the body from the soul, the world from the self. This split isn't accidental. It's functional. Grammar was built to uphold the illusion of isolated individuality. So every time the soul speaks, it declares itself separate. Every "I am afraid" deepens that identity in fear. "I am sick" fixes a condition as permanent. Using "I must," "I have to," "I need" activates the vibration of lack. Even in neutral phrases, language copies control patterns. Impersonal structures and common words like difficult, struggle, sacrifice, and guilt create a heavy vibrational field. Words create, and here they create confinement. Deep linguistics, developed by thinkers like Noam Chomsky, suggests humans have a universal grammar, but that grammar, far from neutral, might be structured to limit us. Like the soul arrives with an open channel, but the language software is corrupted. The word "I" should express divine humility. Instead, in most modern speech, it fuels separation, anxiety, and judgment. It's a deactivated verb, a fallen word. Yet language can be restored and purified. not by adopting a new external tongue, but by reprogramming the inner verb. This means speaking from the vibrational truth of being, which requires consciously breaking automatic speech patterns. Asking before speaking. Does this word build fear or expansion? Does naming this bring me closer or push me away? What reality am I activating with what I say? Ancient traditions understood this. They guarded the sacred name. In Jewish mysticism, the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, wasn't spoken without vibrational preparation. In Egypt, the Ren, the secret name of each soul, was considered more important than the body. In Vedic India, mantras aren't just sounds but frequency keys that open reality's patterns. Language has memory, it has structure, and that structure can be rebuilt. But rebuilding means healing the inner dialogue. The mind, by repeating unconscious thoughts, repeats the commands that uphold the prison. Phrases like, "I can't," "This is too hard," or "This always happens to me," are coded lines reinforcing heavy energetic walls. Changing this language isn't about optimism, it's about vibrational survival. The soul hears and responds to the verb that names it. Reactivating the creative word starts with silence, not speeches, but attention, listening to what's said, feeling each word's vibration, reducing verbal chaos, speaking less but with more truth, using language as a tool for alignment, recovering ancient, vibrational, sacred words, naming what lifts, unites, and reveals. The soul doesn't need to learn how to speak. It needs to remember how it spoke before fragmentation, how it created with voice, how it shaped frequencies with the verb. In the beginning was the Word, not a myth, but a technology of manifestation. That beginning can be reawakened in any soul that chooses to speak from origin, not fear. Language doesn't just communicate, it configures reality. Every prison built with words can be undone with words. To speak from origin is to speak with power, not volume or force, but resonant truth. In that truth, the journey home begins. When the verb is restored, reality starts to obey the soul. Then language stops being a trap and becomes a path. Chapter 8. Time does not exist. The architecture of temporal deception, of all the illusions that keep consciousness in exile, time is the most powerful and the least questioned. We accept it as natural, inevitable, and universal. But in reality, it's an imposed framework, a structure of deception that keeps the soul fragmented, off-center, and cut off from its creative power. The way we think of time, irreversible past, fleeting present, uncertain future, isn't a universal law, but a story implanted in embodied consciousness. It's designed to reinforce the feeling of separation, linear progress, and permanent loss. The deepest spiritual teachings have always said the eternal present is the only true reality. In the Gospel of Thomas, a Gnostic text left out of the Bible, Jesus says, "When you make the two one, and when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, then you will enter the kingdom." Here, the kingdom, meaning the state of unity, is reached not by moving through time, but by reintegrating perception. Time is the distortion that breaks that unity apart. There is no past to return to, no future to reach. Both are projections of a mind trained not to live in the now. Without the now, consciousness loses its center. The Buddha taught that clinging to what was or what might be creates suffering. In the Satipatthana Sutta, he instructs monks to observe the rise and fall of all phenomena in the body, sensations, and mind, with full attention and detachment, right here and now. The here and now isn't just a slogan. It's a practical instruction. Only in the absolute present do the illusions holding up the false self dissolve. Yet this kind of presence is nearly impossible for modern minds, shaped to live inside a strict time system. Kids are taught to focus on the future, what they will become, what they must achieve, what they should fear. They're taught to value the past, what happened, what failed, what hurt. And the present is just a fleeting moment, never a state of fullness. Quantum physics is beginning to break down this view. The block universe theory, supported by physicists like Hermann Minkowski and Julian Barber, says all moments exist simultaneously. There's no real flow of time. What we call past and future are just fixed points within a spatial structure of events. Barber says, change is real, but time is not. What we experience as time passing is an illusion created by how consciousness moves through different configurations of the universe. If that's true, linear time isn't a property of the universe. It's a conditioned perception. The soul doesn't age. It just shifts states. What we call evolution is really moving through different experiences that already exist. But this freedom to move among states has been blocked by a mental program that locks us onto a false, straight timeline. Linear time is a technology implanted in consciousness. It creates expectations, regrets, guilt, and anxiety. A consciousness that believes the past controls it and the future is threatening or desirable is one that can be manipulated. It can be pushed into submission, nostalgia, fear, or procrastination, and above all, it's stopped from creating. True creativity only happens in the absolute now. Everything ever created came from total presence, not from projecting into time. The Upanishads, sacred Vedantic texts, describe the soul's eternity with words that deny linear time. It is unborn, eternal, permanent, and ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed. This isn't a metaphor, but a metaphysical fact. Consciousness doesn't enter or leave time. It simply adopts a temporary view where it thinks of itself as changing, decaying, and moving towards something. That view keeps spiritual exile alive. The soul thinks it's lost something and has to find it, that it's not yet what it should be. But in truth, it already is, always was, and always stands. The biggest obstacle to realizing this truth is mental conditioning. We're trained to tie ourselves to the story of time. I am what happened to me. I'll be happy when I achieve. I'm afraid of what's coming. Each thought builds a conceptual prison and triggers a chemical state in the body that confirms the illusion. Anxiety, tension, sadness. The mind thinks in time, the body reacts chemically, and the soul gets trapped in a movie it believes is real. This pattern can be broken. The first step is to watch thought as the maker of time. Every time the mind projects, pulls back, or anticipates, it's drawing a timeline. Stopping that line means turning your attention fully to the moment, not just as a superficial, live in the present trick, but as a conscious act of breaking the story. Being present means more than paying attention. It means being without a story. It means inhabiting the core where there is no becoming, only being. Temporal deprogramming exercise. Stop everything for 60 seconds. Don't think, project, or judge. Just perceive. Notice what part of you tries to move towards something. An expectation, a memory. Name it. This is time. Let it go. Return to pure perception, touch, breath, sound. Repeat every hour to interrupt the narrative field. This exercise won't instantly enlighten you, but it retrains the mind. It teaches the mind not to build time automatically. In this retraining, the soul starts slipping out of the program. It remembers that eternity isn't a future reward, but a present state. That paradise isn't ahead, but inside, and was never lost. Free consciousness doesn't wait, doesn't postpone, doesn't explain itself through time. It expresses itself from being, and that being, freed from the mind's calendar, begins to see all life as now, and every exile as fiction. Time doesn't exist, but the soul does. And it only remembers who it is when it stops chasing what never was. Chapter 9. The Awakening of Stellar Memory. Activating the sacred recall. The memory of who we were before birth isn't lost. It's asleep, resting at a vibrational level that ordinary consciousness rarely reaches. It's waiting to be awakened, not by gathering facts or intellectual effort, but through an inner alignment that restores the original frequency. Every person carries, embedded in their energy field, a stellar map, a set of codes not inherited biologically but sealed into consciousness before incarnation. This stellar coding holds the untold story of the soul, its origin, purpose, and spiritual lineage. Awakening these codes isn't just remembering where we come from. It's reclaiming an identity that goes beyond the earthly and completely redefines what it means to be human. Pre-Earth consciousness didn't vanish at birth. It was just sealed off. That sealing is necessary to function within a dense reality that can't handle the soul's full light. Remembering while embodied is a threat to the vibrational control systems that rule this plane. So many layers, physical, educational, emotional, linguistic, have been put in place to block recall. But no outside program can erase what's written in the core. It can only hide it. Now, at this evolutionary tipping point, the veil begins to crack. One of the easiest ways to access this sealed memory is conscious breathing. Not as a relaxation trick, but as a vibrational technology. Each deep inhale and slow, focused exhale shifts cardiac coherence, reshapes the body's electromagnetic field, and rewires the brain. Research from the HeartMath Institute shows the heart creates an electromagnetic field 60 times stronger than the brain's. When that field syncs up through breathing, it opens the door to expanded consciousness. As Roland McCready explains, cardiac coherence balances the autonomic nervous system, allowing intuitive, non-linear perceptions, normally beyond everyday awareness, to emerge. The heart isn't just a pump. It's a memory center. When aligned with breath, it sends frequencies that activate dormant patterns in the soul's energetic DNA. This awakening doesn't come as a grand revelation, but as a subtle knowing, a cause-free certainty, an image never taught, a knowledge never learned. Stellar remembrance happens not through logic, but through vibration. Another way to access this memory is through lucid dreaming. In those moments, when the body sleeps and consciousness shifts to finer planes, the soul can partly free itself from the mental filters of earthly thought. But most dreams are controlled by the programmed subconscious, not the soul. That's why training in dream lucidity, through practices like critical awareness, journaling, and repeated intention, is essential. Once lucid, consciousness can ask the key question, who was I before this? Not as a thought, but as a vibrational call. If the frequency is right, the answer comes, not in words, but images, feelings, or energy patterns the soul recognizes. This awakening isn't just for a few. It's happening worldwide in phenomena like starseed children. These individuals from childhood reject earthly systems, feel unexplained homesickness for unknown worlds, carry unlearned wisdom, and naturally sense they don't fully belong here. They're often hypersensitive, highly intuitive, and resist indoctrination. Though psychology often labels these traits as disorders, like attention problems or early depression, they're really signs of a soul that couldn't be fully sealed. Their vibrational field doesn't fit because it wasn't meant to. It's here to shift the surrounding frequency. Ra calls this the wanderer syndrome. In the Law of One, describing these souls as higher density beings incarnating on Earth to help collective evolution. Ra says many currently incarnating aren't native to this planet. They've come as wanderers to serve but forget their original identity. This forgetfulness is part of the deal. Only one who remembers from within, without outside help, can activate the transformation code. But Earth's dense environment traps even these souls in trauma, language, and fear once they arrive. Only inner discipline, breathing, meditation, silence, radical honesty can help them cross back into remembrance. Exercise to activate stellar memory. Sit quietly without expectation. Place your attention in the center of your chest. Breathe evenly. Inhale for 5 seconds. Exhale for 5 seconds for several minutes. Ask inwardly, what memory must I bring today? Don't force an answer. Stay open, whatever arises, a word, image, or feeling. Don't judge it. Write it down later without analyzing. Repeat daily for 21 days. Activation is gradual. Consistency opens the channels. Sacred memory isn't triggered by a desire to remember, but by the frequency behind that desire. If the soul seeks its origin from lack, anxiety, or shallow curiosity, it won't access it. But if it calls from deep commitment, humility, and persistence, the seals break, and what seemed impossible returns. Names, places, knowledge, forgotten promises. We didn't come to start from scratch. We came to reactivate. Every memory that surfaces, no matter how small, lights up a node in a network. That network is indestructible. It may have been silenced, distorted, or asleep, but it can't be erased. It's written in the light that we are, before body, before time, before the world. And once that light starts remembering, it never goes out. Chapter 10. The Spirit That Cannot Be Caged. Beyond DNA, the revolution of consciousness. The human soul, still trapped in a body designed to forget, on a planet wrapped in vibrational control networks, holds onto one thing no lesser power has been able to destroy: its unstoppable drive for freedom. Consciousness, even when damaged, censored, or buried under layers of programming, keeps alive a tiny spark of divinity that refuses to be tamed. That small but absolute spark allows for seemingly impossible things within this earthly framework. Physiological miracles, altered states of perception, spontaneous healing from terminal illness, conscious out-of-body experiences, bilocation, near-death experiences. These aren't random anomalies, they're cracks in the matrix, openings showing that consciousness doesn't belong to the body or genetic code. It comes before all form and transcends every known law. The standard biological view assumes consciousness comes from the central nervous system, that it's a function of the brain. But this idea has been seriously challenged by many studies showing consciousness can operate outside the body. Cardiologist Pim van Lommel, in his work on near-death experiences, Consciousness Beyond Life, documents many cases where patients in clinical death, with no measurable brain activity, reported accurate perceptions of their surroundings, including conversations among medical staff. This challenges the idea that self is just a neural phenomenon and points to non-local consciousness independent of the physical body. This evidence aligns with ancient teachings saying the soul doesn't live in the body. Instead, the body is projected from the soul. In the Corpus Hermeticum, Hermes Trismegistus says, "You are not mortal but immortal. You are not earthborn but heavenborn. You are not generated but engendered." These weren't just poetic phrases, but spiritual diagnoses. What we call I, our thoughts, memories, and feelings, is only a temporary interface through which spirit operates. That spirit can't be held by physical form and inevitably breaks free. Sometimes slowly through deep self-discovery, other times suddenly through spiritual crises or awakenings. One of the strongest signs of this freedom is spontaneous healing. Anita Moorjani's case, recounted in Dying to Be Me, tells of her miraculous recovery from terminal lymphoma after a near-death experience. Verified by oncologists and documented clinically during her out-of-body journey, Moorjani realized her illness was a physical manifestation of fear, and by releasing that fear, her body reset itself. The significance isn't just the case, but what it implies. Cells respond directly to consciousness. Our genetic code isn't fate, it's an interface. Epigenetics confirms that emotions, thoughts, and beliefs directly impact gene expression. So the spirit doesn't just resist being trapped. It transforms the cage from the inside out. The body, built as a vehicle of forgetting, can be reprogrammed by consciousness into a vehicle of remembrance. Take the pineal gland, for example, often dismissed by mainstream biology as useless, but actually an electromagnetic antenna that decodes information beyond our normal senses. Neuroendocrinologist Sergio Felipe de Oliveira has shown the pineal contains crystals with piezoelectric properties, letting it act as a bridge between different planes of reality. No wonder so many spiritual traditions, from the Vedas to Sufism, call it the seat of the soul or the gateway of spirit. This revolution of consciousness goes beyond physiology. It shows up in the mind and emotions too. People who've had mystical experiences or altered perceptions often radically change their lives, their worldview, and their ability to love. The old ego dissolves, and a new identity emerges, one not based on past trauma or social conditioning, but on direct connection with being. This change isn't just personal, it's evolutionary. It signals that humanity is beginning to break free from imposed limits, with spirit redesigning biology from within, preparing a new kind of human, one no longer bound to exile. Extreme experiences, surviving trauma, accidents, comas, or profound crises are powerful triggers for this shift. Survivors often return with a totally different sense of life's purpose. Success, status, and security no longer motivate them. Truth, compassion, and expansion do. They haven't gained something new. They've remembered something ancient. This remembrance reshapes not only the mind, but also the body, the environment, and relationships. Once spirit awakens, it radiates a frequency that changes everything, like an inner sun melting the prison codes. This process isn't easy or quick. It means peeling away layers of lies, resistance, and emotional dependencies. But it's inevitable because no system can contain what doesn't belong. Human consciousness, though housed in a manipulated body, on a quarantined planet, within a dense vibrational network, carries a frequency from a source beyond any control. That frequency can't be crushed, distorted, yes, asleep, yes, but never destroyed. Because it isn't of this world, the revolution of consciousness won't be televised or institutionalized. It will be quiet, personal, and radical. It happens when someone, in the middle of their daily routine, starts experiencing moments of pure presence. When they stop reacting out of fear and begin responding from understanding. When they no longer need religion, science, or outside approval to know who they are. That's when the system collapses, not through confrontation, but through irrelevance. because it loses power over souls that can't be contained anymore. Spirit can't be caged. It can be tested, lost, or irritated, but its essence remains untouched. Every time one of us remembers this truth, a code activates, a network lights up, and a node of stellar consciousness reconnects. The whole plan of exile starts to fall apart from within. We're no longer victims, exiles, or unwanted guests. We carry a flame no false god can put out, and that flame is starting to burn now. Chapter 11. Rebuilding the True Human, the Inner Project of Energetic Sovereignty. What we call the human project today isn't the original design of our existence. It's a deliberate distortion, a product of induced fragmentation of being. Consciousness placed inside incomplete biology, immersed in a fake reality, and programmed to forget, wasn't sent here to surrender to the prison. It came to remember, to rebuild itself, and from within, to reactivate the codes of the original being. The mission isn't to adapt to exile, but to dismantle it piece by piece until the divine architecture that predates all manipulation becomes visible. Rebuilding the true human is an inner work, a process of reintegration that doesn't depend on genetic engineering or external tech, but on energetic sovereignty. The ability to govern our reality field from the deepest vibrational center of the self. This chapter offers a vision of humanity very different from common anthropological, religious, or technological views. We're not evolved animals, puppets of a jealous god, or biological algorithms controlled by a bigger system. We are units of primordial consciousness, living in an altered setting but still capable of restoring our divine blueprint. The path to restoration isn't ideological or rhetorical. It's experiential, vibrational, and intentionally quiet. This is the internal project of energetic sovereignty, a personal, irreversible, deeply spiritual process of rebuilding. The Corpus Hermeticum states, man is a double being, mortal by the body, immortal by the essence. Hermes Trismegistus. This duality isn't to be fought but integrated. The body was hijacked, but it isn't the enemy. It's the vehicle. The soul was trapped, but it isn't defeated. It's the flame. The true human is the alchemical blend of the remembering divine and the obedient material. Reaching this blend requires a total reset, starting in silence. Silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's breaking the verbal programming that keeps the illusion alive. In the Gospel of Thomas, a banned Gnostic text, Jesus says, "When you know what is within you will save you. If you do not have it within you, what you do not have within you will kill you." That within isn't a metaphor. It's coded in the electromagnetic heart, the pineal gland, the solar plexus vortex. In the toroidal field, every human constantly emits. Rebuilding means reconnecting with these centers, clearing them of interference and restoring their role as broadcasters and receivers of reality. This happens not through information, but through frequency. And frequency is chosen by steady intention. That's why intentional silence is necessary. A practice of inner emptying where borrowed words, secondhand thoughts, and inherited emotions pause so the original voice can emerge. The personal frequency, the creative word. One of the most overlooked keys in this process is energetic nutrition. Physical food is just one interface. What we take in through our eyes, ears, attention, and emotions directly shapes the human electromagnetic field. Just like some foods inflame or weaken the body, certain information inflames or weakens consciousness. Quantum nutrition is about vibrational discernment, choosing what supports inner coherence over what just feeds immediate cravings. This kind of nutrition ties directly into cardiac coherence. Research from the HeartMath Institute shows the heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's. This field doesn't just send info through the body, it impacts the environment around us. When someone enters deep states of gratitude, love, compassion, or pure presence, their heart field sinks into coherent patterns that reshape their biology and surroundings. This isn't poetry, it's physics, and it's one of the most powerful energetic sovereignty tools ever taught. Recovering cardiac coherence means focusing attention on the heart, deliberately generating elevated emotional states, and holding them until they become the energetic baseline. Spiritual rebuilding of the true human doesn't require new dogmas, but a gradual letting go of old ones. It's not about adopting new beliefs, but about living new states of being. It's not about finding answers, but about holding questions with greater awareness. This transformation speaks in symbols, but its effects are real. Every thought held in coherence changes brain chemistry. Every emotion held in peace changes cells. Every aligned action changes the collective field. Internal alchemy, in its true sense, isn't about turning metals into gold. It's about transforming frequencies. The lead of identifying with exile has to become the gold of divine remembrance. This process calls for inner fire, steady will, radical presence, and sharp discernment. There are no shortcuts, but there are maps, and every authentic tradition has given them, even if control systems twisted their message. The Emerald Tablet of Hermes says it clearly: that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to perform the miracles of one thing. This isn't just a saying, it's a guide. What happens in the subtle world reflects in the physical, and vice versa. So rebuilding the true human means working on the invisible with the same care we give the visible. Every thought, intention, and breath is an act of energetic engineering. There will come a time when this rebuilt human isn't the exception but the norm. Someone who no longer needs outside validation because they've reconnected with their inner source. Someone who no longer follows religions but lives the divinity those religions tried to describe. Someone who no longer sees themselves as fallen, but as a reintegrated spark. That human is being born now, in the middle of chaos, not with fireworks or political revolutions, but in the quiet silence of those who, deep within their own consciousness, remember how to be what they never stopped being. Energetic sovereignty isn't shouted, it's felt. And once felt, it can't be taken away. It's the master key that breaks the matrix, not by fighting but by seeing clearly. From that clarity, exile ends and the return begins. Chapter 12. The Return to the Place that was never a place. The human journey has always carried an inexplicable longing, a constant whisper not pointing to a specific homeland, lost culture, or clear memory. It's nostalgia without a map, a wound without a visible cause, a search that keeps going despite all accomplishments, relationships, beliefs, or sacrifices. What we call the spiritual path is really just a structured effort to answer that inner call telling us we're not home. But the big mistake, even in advanced esoteric traditions, has been to think there's a place to return to, a cosmic coordinate where we belong, a star civilization, an origin constellation, or a matrix of light to get back to. That idea, useful at first, must eventually be left behind. The soul doesn't come from a place. It comes from the all. The closing of this book isn't meant to give a final destination, but to break the last illusion that there's somewhere to go back to. The truth is, there is no return, because there was never a departure. Separation was an illusion. Exile was a symbolic code. The journey was a teaching hologram meant to wake us up to the fact that we were never kicked out, because we never left. Time, space, matter. These were stages consciousness created to know itself through contrast. The Gospel of Truth, a Gnostic text attributed to Valentinus, makes this clear. Forgetfulness wasn't the Father's will. It happened because the name expanded before it was understood. But when the light came, forgetfulness disappeared. Forgetfulness was the side effect of expansion, not punishment. And return doesn't mean moving. It means the veil dissolving. To return to the all isn't to move toward it, but to drop the illusion that we're separate from it. Return is the gradual fading of all forms that took the place of being. It's the final silence when there are no questions left, no desires, no identities to defend. This isn't mystical renunciation or nihilism. It's full integration. Realizing every form was a mask of the same ground, every creature a disguise of the source, every exile a lesson the one gave to itself. The idea of return, deeply rooted in religion and mysticism, is useful only while consciousness still needs an outside direction. Once a certain vibrational maturity is reached, it must be replaced with a deeper truth. There is no return because there is no outside. Many sages have hinted at this, though often in veiled ways. In the Astavakra Gyata, one of the most radical Vedantic texts, it says bluntly, "You are the one consciousness. All this is illusion. There is neither union nor separation. Remain in silence." This level of understanding isn't reached by gathering information, but by letting go of all references. In that total emptiness, an absolute certainty appears, one that doesn't depend on evidence, faith, or outside approval. It's the vibrational knowing that what we are can't be named, labeled, or searched for, because it's before all searching. At this stage, the soul realizes that feeling out of place was never a wound to fix, but a secret compass, a sacred role, an ontological tension keeping the fire of consciousness alive. The discomfort, alienation, and disconnection from the world, so many tried to numb, were actually signs consciousness was vibrating at a higher frequency, unable to fit into the prison's coordinates. Earth isn't the problem. The body isn't the problem. Not even the beings who messed with our genetics, the education system that programmed perception, or the religions that twisted the original message are the problem. All of that was part of the stage. The turning point comes when we stop looking for an exit. When we see there's no above or below, no inside or outside, that the universe itself is consciousness observing itself. And that return isn't to a star, a plane, or vibration, but to a state of absolute knownness where the I dissolves without dying, and the all is revealed with no intermediaries. From this view, even this book stops being a map and becomes a mirror. It doesn't aim to take you anywhere. It aims to bring you back to the place that was never a place, to that eternal center where everything begins and where everything returns, but where really nothing ever moved. True sovereignty isn't about conquering worlds, changing genetics, or reaching some conceptual enlightenment. It's about the certainty of being, and that certainty isn't something you learn, it's something you remember. The rebuilt human no longer looks for meaning outside themselves, no longer asks permission to exist, no longer needs proof of the divine, because the divine is no longer something external, but the only real thing. Everything else, time, pain, history, the system, are just shadows dancing on the cave wall. The soul that's come this far no longer identifies with those shadows and doesn't need to fight them. It moves right through them, The return to the place that was never a place ends the illusion of the journey and begins permanence in the eternal. Now, everything can be lived without attachment, defense, or the need to win. Because there's nothing to lose, the essential was never in danger, and you, the one reading these words, understanding them easily, observing without getting caught up, are the consciousness that never left, the one who pretended to search so it could find, the origin that spread out into 1,000 forms just to fold back into itself. And now, in this moment, it recognizes itself. Exile is over. The veil has fallen. What you are is finally remembered it always was. Epilogue. The wound that guides the immortal. If you made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Nothing in this book was meant to entertain, please, or convince. Every word, every quote, every insight was a threshold, a resonance awakened in readers who don't need outside proof to remember what they already knew. What we've done here isn't to build something new, but to take apart what enclosed the soul, the fiction of blind belonging, of the body as the only identity, of time as prison, of language as limit, of earth as final home. We warned you at the start. This book wouldn't speak like others. It's not for your conditioned mind, but for the intelligence buried beneath generations of forced forgetting. Now you know. That feeling of not fitting in wasn't an illness or a flaw. It was an echo, a call vibrating through your bones, your marrow, the deepest parts of your spiritual memory. The discomfort you tried to silence was actually a compass. It didn't point to a place on the map, but to a state of consciousness beyond all form. Through these pages, we stripped away the layers that distorted your perception. A body designed for bondage, not freedom. A mind trained to repeat, not remember. A language that divides rather than connects. But we also showed you the way out. Not an escape to the stars, but a return to what was never lost. The place you belong isn't in this universe. It's before the universe. And though your exile's coordinates are written in your cells, your path home is coded in your blood. The real rebellion isn't against any political system, economy, or religion. The true revolution is inside, reclaiming your energetic sovereignty, activating your consciousness as a creative force, dismantling inherited programs, not with violence, but with the calm authority of one who has awakened. This book is just a map. No one else can walk the path for you. There are no saviors, no superior races to free you. There's only the supreme intelligence remembering through you that you made this pact. Not to suffer, but to illuminate from within. So what now? You don't need to search anymore. The soul that knows it doesn't belong here has found its purpose, the purpose that gives meaning to exile, bringing the eternal into the temporary, the sacred into the everyday, the unchanging into the chaos. To turn this plane into an altar, this body into a temple, this density into a vibrational symphony. When the world feels absurd, painful, or alien again, remember, that wound isn't a flaw. It's the sign you're still awake, still remembering. The feeling of not belonging was just the start of the return. But that return was never to a place. It was always to you.